The ceiling fans? They're very attractive.
What a piece of junk!
She'll make .5 past light speed. She may not look like much, but she's got it where it counts, kid. I've made a lot of special modifications myself.
Satellite tracking continues.
The Incredible Hulk will not be presented this evening.
You're all individuals! Yes, we're all individuals!
Clickety-click.
Crank up the music. Keep an eye on the back.
This presentation is provided to you to amuse or entertain and not to conform or inform. The content on this channel should not be used to replace professional, financial, medical, or legal advice. All footage taken and used from public sources falls under the Fair Use of the Digital Millennium Copyright Act of 1998. Therefore, no breach of privacy or copyright has been committed. This show is substantially sourced, not affiliated with any community, club, fraternity, or gang. Your cat may vary. I say, moo. A fun fact, before the invention of the crowbar, crows had to drink at home.
flight tracking continues.
Wow. Wow. Hey, everybody. It's Friday night. We did it again. We're on the right side of the grass. Whoop, whoop. Or honk, honk, as some of you like to say in the chat. Great to be here again, celebrating another Friday night with you all. Let's see. First thing I need to do is find the button that turns on my camera.
Clickety-click.
That would be that one. Hey, everybody. Good to be seen by you all. Look all right. I think everything's looking good there. So what an exciting night. Lots of new people in the chat. It flies by so fast I can barely get everybody's comments in there. I try my best. But I'm glad you all decided to spend another evening with me. And I don't have any kind of intro for my guest tonight. I'm trying to think, is there anything here that would fit? No. Not really. I'll just bring him in with Colt the Khan's intro. That's all I have right now. So tonight it's not Colt the Khan. It is the Rev, as you all know and love.
This party buzz is everywhere.
You don't have any kind of noises or anything that I know of yet. So
yeah.
But,
yeah, that's wild. I can't believe it. All I can say to that is don't let it happen again.
Yeah,
no, seriously. Man, that's a blessing right there to be on Connor's party bus. Shoot, I mean, let's go. Honk, honk.
I'm really enjoying the party bus. I didn't even know it existed until whatever, like last month, I guess.
Yeah, it's a pretty fun concept. I like the energy that it brings and the vibes, that's what I like. Yeah. We live in a depressive state of mind in this world sometimes, and it's good to be able to filter all that out with a little bit of humor and joy,
So, okay, as I quickly look at the chat, does everyone agree with Jackie? Are we sounding low, or is that okay? I thought I could hear us well, so just give me a thumbs up or so. Let us know. But yeah, and I love and if for people that are new to me, that music, it was just dropped in my lap by the Holy Spirit, because it's on YouTube. It's free music. No one was using it, and it sounds like they're in studio, just ripping
just
it
jamming.
up, jamming, yeah. And it's kind of like I said, I've done this now. A Friday, I looked it up. I've done about 4 years of Friday night shows.
Wow.
I've only missed a handful of them. I mean, I know everyone numbers their episodes. I never really got into that, but I looked it up with the help of AI, and it's like somewhere around 400, maybe 420. Somewhere in that neighborhood,
right?
Of shows. And the hardest part is that intro. It had that little break. I can lengthen or extend or shorten it as needed for the joke. But the very first time I used this music, because I had another music before this. It was called Ceiling Fan and My Spoon. It's I forget the name of the group right now, but the Lemonheads. And I got a strike on it, and so I couldn't use their music. So I found this, and the first time I used it, I thought, well, what am I going to put here when it just kind of goes with the drum? Nothing's happening. And so I did a joke, and it went over well. But then what happened was, the next week I couldn't play the same intro with the same joke every week. It would get ridiculous. And so I shot a new joke and I re-edited it, and then became this ridiculous process I put myself into that I literally have to re-edit my intro every week, which is really a pain. But what's another funny thing about that is when you look at the analytics that you get from YouTube, my peak, like I have almost 100% retention, because it goes up and down depending on, when people dip out to eat or go to sleep or whatever.
Right.
But mine in the very beginning, like it's on YouTube even said it's very highly unusual that everyone's there for the joke. That's
it's a blessing though. That's amazing though.
that wild? So yeah, the first 5 minutes I peak, and then it's all
Yeah.
downhill.
Well, I mean, I think it's because we fall asleep. Yeah, we get old. And some of us,
Yeah.
I think, at least for me, I'm getting there. I'm still a young one. I think I'm in my
You are.
40s, but but I'm getting on up there.
I find that the older I get, the number seems way less old when I get to it.
Right.
Like when you hit 50, when you were in your 20s, 50 was an old person.
Yeah.
And now it didn't seem that way. I'm in my 50s, like it doesn't seem that way.
Yeah.
And
Right.
talking to my mother who's in her 80s, and she feels the same way. She doesn't feel or old. But it's very bizarre how that perception changes. Yeah, but so welcome everyone. So hopefully you're kind of aware who I am now. My name comes from that Mariner 9 satellite that looks exactly like a ceiling fan that they didn't even bother to Photoshop out the light chain. And so when I did my research on satellites being fake, because they fly on balloons, they're not in space. They're all cartoons. And when you look it up, satellite in space, you just get cartoons. And even if you were to say that's a real satellite, who took the picture, right? There has to be a secondary satellite following around. And then don't get me started on the thousands that are supposed to be up there, but yet we never see them in any NASA photos or ISS. They don't crash.
Right.
I mean, the whole thing is complete garbage. And so that's how I got my name. But to the people that are new to you, so I met this gentleman from, the party bus people that have been contacting me. And there's an echo. I wasn't reading the chat. Let's see. There's an echo. My mic sounds hollow. Test. Is that not working? Let's see. Oh, wait. I know what's wrong. Test. Is that better? Of course, you're in the past. No, this mic was not live. So that should be good. Hopefully that does it. So let us know in the chat. There we go. Okay.
There you go.
Okay.
There you go.
Much better. Thank you, everyone. It's I don't know. You think by now I'd know what I'm doing, but I just said I did 4 years of live shows every Friday, and yet it's just how it is.
You do good. Love the soundboard edits.
What's that?
The soundboard edits.
Yeah, right. Well, that was the other thing. When I started doing videos, I was using my walkie-talkie, says John Smith. Thanks. So when I started doing my videos, I wasn't live. I'd walk around and I would say my thoughts, what was going on. It was especially during those 2020 years was kind of crazy for everyone. And so I found that when I recorded too long of whatever I was discussing on my iPhone, I couldn't connect it directly to the computer. So what I had to do is I had to send emails of clips. Well, they could only be 2 minutes long. So in between that, I had these natural breaks, and then I started using these things.
True. Yep. Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
And so then they just, when I got StreamYard, they became incorporated part of the show. And now I feel like everyone uses them because of me.
Hey, it only takes one to set a trend,
Thank you. Oh, I appreciate that. Let's see. What do I don't know. Yeah, here we go.
That's very true.
That's right.
So, okay. So going back to my guest here. So he's called the Rev. He has a show called Truth Unfiltered, but you have to add the YT if you're looking for him. I think I have it in the descriptions for people if they need to find you. But just give us, I guess what I'd like to know, or I guess my audience hopefully would too, is what made you decide to finally turn the camera on and start talking about like the craziness things that you see in the world? And when did you start seeing them? You were telling me that you started with gaming, so maybe start from there.
Yeah. So, um, I've had this problem my whole life. I think it really, truly, it really began when I was about 12 and 13 years old, because that was when I had first actually read through the Bible. And when I did, I had too many questions that couldn't be answered. And and as you grow, you'll look into things as time allows, but you're young, so you go play ball and play sports and do other things, and you enjoy your life to a degree, and you kind of let things go. By the time I got grown, I guess I don't know. I just got to a point in my life where I didn't know how to really respond to people when they would talk to me, because I always would have to sit here and think, what are they really trying to say? Because whatever they're really trying to say is what they're going to use against me in towards their benefit. So what is the scenario where they benefit the most? That's generally what they're leaning towards. And I would have to try to train my mind that way. Um, but I came out with Truth Unfiltered, I don't know, about 10 years ago or so, but that channel got taken down pretty quick. Prior to that, I was just the Rev, and I was gonna post videos, but that was 18 years ago, and all I wanted to talk about then was the things that I didn't understand that everyone else didn't understand. Like I didn't know that grown men didn't know how to change oil and
Yeah.
build houses. I just things like that were common. You take care of your own stuff, and that's just you learn how to be self-sufficient, so to speak. And it was interesting going out into the world, meeting grown people that just didn't have a clue about anything.
You know what's
And
interesting about that is it goes along with this whole idea that we no longer teach the next generation these
mm,
things. Like they broke up the family unit, they made us all go to the indoctrination camps, I mean school, and they taught us stuff. Most of it was, wrong. We're finding out history and stuff was wrong, but they took away, like, I don't believe they have it anymore, like home ec and the mechanic shop and wood shop,
yeah,
all those things, those skills that used to be taught and handed down are lost now. And
mm,
when you look at the Bible, I think I said this last Friday. There's only about 420 years, more or less, between when Noah's flood happened and the only surviving people between then and when Abraham was, say, like in his 50s or so. And
right,
as he was the only righteous man left. So in a
right,
span of 400 years, I mean, it's mind-boggling to me. You saw everyone die, and that had to have been the main story every night. For years
mm,
they would have told
yeah,
that story, but somewhere along the line, they stopped telling that story, and here we
mm,
are. And it seems like we're there again. Like God's gone. Nobody talks about him. Nobody discusses it. Really, I mean, overall, I should say.
right,
And
right,
it's the same idea when you're looking around going, how can you not know how to change a tire or change
right,
oil? Or, we're doing it again.
yeah, um, yeah. So man, I can talk about any of this stuff forever. But ultimately, what it boiled down to is I'm a consumer of content like anyone on YouTube. Whether it's you're a creator or not, it started out watching it, and I would watch stuff and siphon through videos and content until I found things that I found interesting or I actually agreed with. And crazy thing is, I agree with almost everybody on certain levels within all realms of conspiracy.
Mhm.
Issues is that everybody's stuck in one part of it, and they don't seem to be putting it all together. And I'm sitting here looking at this thing, going, what I'm reading here and what I'm seeing and what you guys are talking about over here on YouTube and in the chat and all that, it's that is it. I mean, I don't know what else I don't know how else you can top understanding every truth about Christ without having actually been there and seeing it. I mean, it's it's almost true faith when it comes down to understanding when we are in time. I didn't understand, I never called it the little season. I didn't know anything about trying to like put titles on things like that. It was always, I know when we are, you don't, but you're trying to tell me how I'm supposed to be. This doesn't make sense at all. It's like you'll listen to things and you'll learn little truths through different people. Say like Robert Kiyosaki, the money man, how he'll say rich dad, poor dad. You'll
Mhm.
listen to him and you go, that he makes sense and what he's saying is true and it's right. But then what level or like what side of right is that? And that's when it comes to the system that we're in. A lot of people don't understand because we're not going to be taught that we're deceived. We're not going to be saying, hey, by the way, what we're telling you ain't real and true, but yet they did. And they do it all the time. Hey guys, the history is written by the victors. Hey, did y'all hear about all these wars we went through to take over this place? What? And then yet we don't question the history we're taught as if it doesn't really matter if it's true or not. This is what we're going with because
Isn't that fascinating? When you wake up to this, you see
yeah,
these buildings like this gent from New York saying, we don't know how to build. We can't build these buildings that they built back then. And we're supposed to be the most advanced society. We didn't know how they did it. We can't build them now, And they put up a sign. That's why I said the sign makers make the most money. Put up a sign. This was built in 1890, or they're founded, they say. This was founded. And then that's it. And then we just move on, take a picture of it and go get food, It's just,
right. Found and founded, as if those two words can be explained as two different things in some kind of way, and they can't. I mean, it's the same thing. I mean, they have the same meaning,
right.
regardless of how it's said. Doesn't mean even if you put it past tense, present tense, whatever. It's even worse if you're saying it's past tense, then you're admitting that it was found. So it's an odd thing when you really think about it. I've realized no one really changes much in scripture. They only change the red letters or anything that has to do with the red letters. That's all they change. It's the only part of scripture really where people will look at it and go, no, I think he meant this instead. But they
Right.
don't they don't argue about getting kicked out of the Garden of Eden. They don't argue about the flood. They don't argue about two animals here and there, going in on or whether it was 7 or 2 or whatever. We're not arguing about all that. That's not an argument. Nobody cares. They understand that it's true. When it comes to Jesus, nah, I don't know. I don't know if I like that version of what you just said. I think we're going to change what he meant. And you can't do that. I mean, if you do that, that is the exact. I mean, that is the definition of leaning on your own thoughts. It's
What's interesting is I brought that up, a new passage that I realized connected to it, and this is in John 16, and like you're saying, this is Jesus talking, and right here he says, "A little while, you shall not see me," and we know that happened, right? He left them, but then he right the same sentence, and again, a little while, you shall see me. So we're supposed to believe the first one happened right away, and the second one's not going to happen for 2,000 years. And then they question him even farther, like, "What do you mean by that?" And so when he continues down, and he said, he repeats it. And where is it? He says, "I will see you again, and your heart shall rejoice." He compares it to a woman in travail, 9 months. And then he continues on, and they say, where is it? Where is it? Okay, right here. They speak of him and say, "Lo, now speakest thou plainly and not in proverbs." So they're like, okay, we just want to hear you speak plainly this time. And so once again, he says that, where is it? These things I have spoken to you, that ye might have peace. In the world ye shall have tribulation, but be of good cheer. I've overcome the world. So he continues through this passage. Basically, the whole passage is saying these things are happening. As we've discussed before, there's plenty of times when he says this generation, and he's talking to a room full of people. And when the disciples pull him aside separately, why would he then not tell them what they want to hear? Because they say, when will this happen? And he tells them about a future generation. And like you say, that was put in there by somewhere along the line in the church, the dispensationalism, where he's talking about future generations. And they only twist or make you wonder about his words, right? Like you're saying, how many animals and so forth. So it's, I believe, part of this whole deception that proves that we are in the little season.
Pizza.
Of Satan. That's how I hear little season.
Yeah. Well, this is like little Rome, it's they nothing's new under the sun. Everything they're doing now is a copy of the way things were once before in some degree. The beauty of the world may not be nowhere near where it ever was, and it's never going to get to that point ever again unless this world is destroyed and there is a new world built. I mean, that's really the only logical conclusion to that. There's no real way to make this world new. How can you add to something that's gone? Once something's taken away, it's taken away, it's gone. And so you consider that most of the world was destroyed. When you consider all of that and understand what they're talking about, and you understand how to place proper audience relevance within the scripture as you're reading it, then you start learning a whole lot more about the deceptions of the world around you, because it makes you question everything. It makes you go, well, why did you say that to me like that? Or what did they mean when they told me this? I have to tell people quite often, I apologize. I didn't realize you were confused, or I didn't realize I misunderstood you. But now I know you didn't mean go south. You meant go north, even though you said south. I should have known, but it's just like, man, on one level of it, it's harmless, but it's nothing to worry about, but yet it bothers people, and it can be frustrating. It can lead to other issues. It's just one of those things that I've explained where we're not necessarily born as sinners, but being born into sin is that you're so far out here on the branch already when you're born that you don't even realize you're being deceived from day one. You're way out here. And this is a normal way of living. To really unravel that, you have to give up all of this, which is basically cutting this thing off at the shoulder. And you only have one way.
Before we went on air, you'd mentioned to me that you were sort of red pilling people on games.
Yeah.
Hey, get more coffee.
Yeah.
Which I find hilarious. I've heard other people do that, but you're playing some game and then you just like hit them with, I don't know, some truth that they just like, what do they tell you, to be quiet?
Well, it's funny because when when I would play games like this, oh man, I would be playing games like World of Warcraft, DC Universe Online, League of Legends, Call of Duty, the multiplayer games.
Yeah.
But the World of Warcraft type of games, you'd have to have a big group. So I would always basically just kind of keep to myself and just be so good at this that they cannot spare me. They have to have me, because they have to have me. They can't say nothing when I start talking. And I would just, when I was younger, I would drink on the weekends and have a good time. And I'd be in there like, come on, guys, we can do this. And oh man, it's late or whatever. And I'd still be going, just hammered. And then all of a sudden,
tell them some truth of the world.
We
right?
ended up talking about Genesis, and I'm like, y'all don't understand. If you don't believe in the first 11 chapters of Genesis, you might as well put the whole book down. It would lead to statements and conversations throughout the gameplay, which would often lead to shouts of God, be quiet or what, and all that. And so they would call me Reverend as a kind of like mocking me, but in a, hey, you're our bro, but we're going to call you Reverend kind of way. And it just kind of stuck. And that's how
Well,
that
it's
name
nice that you were
developed.
so good at the game they couldn't get rid of you, and they had to sit through it. That's kind of funny.
Yeah.
I was telling you earlier, I was never good at that. I tried. I played Red Dead, and everyone encouraged me to go online and play it, and I couldn't last a minute without someone killing me. So I just stopped because I still had trouble getting on and off the horse. I wasn't about to try to like figure out how to do the rest of it. So yeah. But that I've heard that a lot. That a few other people have said that to me. The gamers.
It's fascinating.
Yeah.
In a way, a lot of people within this community feel the same way. They grew up alone in this, or they're learning about this and they're alone in this. And it's so fascinating. Everybody I've talked to, no matter where they're from, I've had conversations with people from India. I've had conversations with people from South Africa. It doesn't matter where they're from or where you're at. We all have a similar story. I mean, we all, in some degree, a lot of things have happened very like oddly similar,
Yeah.
And I find that interesting, but there's a reason for that, I'm sure. We have to, I guess we'll figure that out. Within each of us, it's different, I'm sure. So it would be one of those things you just kind of comes to you, I guess.
It does say, part of it is God sets us aside to, have conversation with us and use us as his vessel to continue his works here. In addition to that, I used to play the Richard Gere version, and then we went with some friends and we found where they actually shot Officer Gentleman, and I wore the shirt and I recreated the scene because I make this joke that most of the people that show up to my show, it's for one reason only.
I got nowhere else to go. I got nowhere else to
go. Didn't win the Oscar that year, but it came close. But yeah,
that is hilarious.
Yeah, these are the silly. And that's the other thing. This show saves my wife because, otherwise she'd have to deal with all this alone. So now I get to do it here instead.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you. This virtual reality witness. Awakened Saint. I've done many shows with him. I haven't. I did one on his. He's mostly just on Rumble now. But yeah, he's a fun guy to do shows with. So thank you for the super chat. God bless you. So okay, go ahead. I interrupted you. Sorry.
Oh no, you're fine. But I was just gonna say, it's funny because I have a helper that was just. We were just talking, and out of nowhere, he was telling me some stuff he understood about Jesus, and I stopped and I said, "Well, wait a minute." I said, "What do you know about Jesus?" I said, "Where'd you learn all that about Jesus from?" And he goes, "From you." And I was like, "Oh, yeah." Because y'all don't have a choice. Y'all ride with me. That's what we're talking about. If we want to talk, or we can sit here with our headphones in. So you pick your poison.
That's wonderful. That when you get that, as we don't always get that, but every once in a while, I'll get email or something, and someone has said something that I've helped them with, and it's a wonderful feeling. But what happened with me is probably like you. I eventually, you didn't tell me why you finally turned your camera on, but what I finally did was I had all this information, this knowledge, and I felt compelled to try to get it out there.
Yes.
And then as I continued through the process, like I would tell my wife, no matter what I looked up, I could look up lizard people living in Antarctica. I could look up the Mandela effect. Anything you can look up. There was eventually a conversation between good and evil, God and Satan. And the one thing they told you was to not read the Bible. And so, of course, that's what I do. I do what you tell me not to do. And
so rebellious nature.
Thank you. Yeah. Right. And so that was my eye opener. And then it went from there. And the reason I continue to do this is I feel it in my heart. This is where God wants me right now, to reach whoever wants to hear the information. Because, like, it says, I can't reach my own family and friends, but I can reach someone across the country or somewhere else in the world. I'm getting people watching me from, different countries. And so I was put here to talk to that one person that one night. And that's it. And so I'll continue to do this. And like I've said before, I don't want to have that conversation when I meet God. And I stopped doing this. And he's like, well, I gave you this, gift of gab or whatever, and some humor in you, and woke your eyes up and gave you the resources to do this. Why did you stop? And what am I going to say? I wanted to binge watch Reacher on Prime. You know what I mean? Like, I got to have a good excuse as to why I stopped doing this. And so that's
right.
And here we are. I keep doing it. So,
yeah.
let me turn your camera on finally and start talking like this.
I was bored.
Well, that's a way easier one than mine.
if I'm being honest, I was sitting here one night and I said, I got all this stuff. I got all this information, all this knowledge, and I think I have a way to help people figure out how to put all their puzzle pieces together. Like, I don't know necessarily all the ins and outs of all the conspiracy theories. What I do know is how to help the ones that have told me that information go, that's true. No, let's move on past that one and slide that over. We'll get back to that. And how, in other words, plainly put, discernment. And I think I hear a lot of it. People talk about it, but I don't see it a whole lot in a lot of content creators. And I don't know if it's because there's just so much, and it is easy to miss things. And I'm not saying that I know everything, but when I see this guy talking about this and this guy talking about that, and then this lady over here talking about this and this young lady over here talking about that, they're all saying the same thing, but it's different. And then that's when I realized it's a perspective. And then so I had to figure out what everybody was really triggering to, and then say, okay, well, this one is over here in this realm of belief, this one over here, they're in this realm of belief. And I started seeing all this as patterns, in just the same way. Whenever I would read this book, I would pick up on all these patterns and like sequences and stuff. And it's crazy talk whenever I say it out loud like that. But essentially, I was just sitting here going, they need to either accept that this is the truth or move on past it, because I want to understand. I'm ready to get this over with. If that's the case, let's move on to the next thing. How do we do that? And we can't do that till everybody understands what's really going on. And I figured, well, I know one thing. I know how to read this thing, and I can go over that with everybody and show everyone how I figured this stuff out. I'm not saying that I know every detail exactly like some people, but I could tell you that I know when in time we are. But that just comes that, and a lot of that also comes from building real timelines. So I guess the short version of that is I have a knack for teaching, so I figured I would teach what I know. It just happens what I know is the same thing what a lot of people know. We just don't understand how we figured it out, some of us. And I figured I'd help out with that, and more the merrier,
What I'm finding is most people don't read the Bible, even if they said they've read it. They don't read it daily. They don't go into scriptures and look things up. And those of us that do, like myself and you and a few others I've talked to, it kind of helps open other people's eyes and hopefully gives them the hunger that you feel. Once you really understand the book, man, you want to read it. It's as good as any novel, and there's so much information. And when they're teaching us all these lies in school that they keep, they can't even keep their own lies straight. They keep changing them. It's the one, book that covers your history, your current situation, and, the potential future that we're going through. So it's wonderful to have people like yourself that will go on and cover the scriptures for people that either don't want to or don't have the time or don't make the time, I guess, to read it.
Right.
I used to do it every Sunday with a gentleman, Steve JMO, and we'd pick a passage and do that. And he's not doing YouTube right now, but it's something that it's a wonderful thing. And I believe Colter Khan, he does one too. So two also.
Yeah, I love his stuff. I mean, he has a knack for telling it like it is. He does a pretty good job. His demeanor and his mannerisms, it's what you guys all do within this community. You display, you walk to talk. If you're talking it, you're walking it, and you're showing that through the way you present yourselves. And I had to learn that about people, and that they're not always necessarily talking for the right reasons. And it doesn't make sense when people talk about things they don't know anything about, but yet if we didn't, we wouldn't talk a lot. We'd be a silent community. Because we don't really know a lot.
Well, I'll tell you what, let me I have to clear some of these tabs. I don't want to forget, because I was telling the Rev that sometimes I have like a main thing of the show, like animals, and then don't get to it. So hopefully I'll remember to get to that, and we'll cover some other things. But let me start off with killing some of these tabs out of here. And I definitely, first of all, anybody that is enjoying my shows, please make sure you hit the like button, share and subscribe. That helps the channel grow. I really appreciate that. And of course, any of the monetary ways, there's a Cash App, and I now have a PayPal link up there in the corner because some people can't do Cash App. But then also, don't forget, my wife makes the most amazing natural soaps, and you won't find anything better anywhere else. Just saying. And so there, I did my commercial, hon. I'm in charge of marketing and shipping. So okay, and I'll throw that in the chat. There. Those are my commercials. Okay. And we're on Twitter now. That's wonderful.
Nice.
So let's see. I want to start with this really creepy thing that happened. KFC, and I'm not just bashing, them, but they put out this weird commercial where this weird egg drops down, and none of it. I don't even understand it. I'm not going to make you sit through it. But they take this golden egg and they walk it somewhere through the forest. I don't know who these people are. But then they do this really creepy thing. They take this one guy and they pick him up and they walk him into this, whatever this looks like, water that's murky. But apparently it's supposed to be gravy because it's called All Hail Gravy. And she immerses him in the gravy and then pulls him out, and he's an edible chicken nugget.
Oh my goodness.
What are they saying?
I don't know. Like,
they're trying to explain to you what, like, we've at least a lot of us have seen, what is it, that one Rothschild guy that says that they put people in Soylent Green in McDonald's,
yeah, Soylent Green
too, like, what the heck? Did you see this? Is that nuts? Believe me.
I don't know. It's well, eggs usually symbolize rebirth, becoming new again. Yeah. I don't know the chicken nugget thing. I mean, that's an odd, odd thing to put together. There are messages and all that stuff, though. None of that is.
Oh, absolutely. I have to
random.
I have some people that showed up late, including JT. So he's tardy.
I don't feel tardy.
There. And that chicken thing will probably be on the mixtapes. Because that's some weird stuff, man.
Yeah.
But yeah, and yes, I know the Colonel was a Mason. Yeah, 33rd degree, by the way. So that's the no bueno part. Okay. All right, let me get rid of this. Close out some of these. Okay. Where were we? I hear animals in your background.
Is it overwhelming?
No, what are they?
They're puppies.
Oh,
I have a litter of about seven pups.
wow.
Well, and they're free to get home.
Oh, nice.
At some point, give it about 6 weeks, maybe, a little late, maybe a few more.
I had to share this because it's so ridiculous.
In Newcastle County, Delaware. Yeah. Right in front of the apples.
How could they not notice when they were doing it? You know what I mean? He did, but he was just completely clueless. So that was
so, it's so funny because when you don't see that every night, and so it's all over everywhere. We're all sharing information, and it's almost hard not to see the truth anymore. I don't know how they're going to keep this hidden much longer.
Well, and part of it we'll go over tonight is they're really kind of you see it trending where they push the same stories and everyone starts talking about them. It's interesting.
I like how they just now figured out there's something under the pyramid. And I'm like, what?
Yeah, that's part of it. I'll go over that one too. But I thought this was good. They always encourage us not to do your own research.
Don't do any of your own research.
Doing your own research is associated with conspiracy theory circles. This go-it-alone approach, doing your own research, that can have serious consequences. You should get prison time for even questioning the vaccines.
Can we all stop saying, I need to do my own research?
That phrase, do your own research, 4 words. 4 little words that are hurting America. Doing your own research hurts America. Everybody has a supercomputer.
Anyways, it's just on and on and on. They're trying to tell us that just listen to the information they give us. And now it's all about what Grok tells everyone, right? That's the new one. And so it's less and less of us learning things on our own. Like you're saying, they're making it harder. As people left mainstream media and went to these other social medias, now they're hammering it there too, just to keep us from knowing the truth. And so, but as far as weather goes, so out here, I'm in the state of Washington, the Northwest up here, and they showed us this satellite picture that this thing was coming, this monstrous, it looks like a hurricane.
It does.
Was on its way here. And they warned everyone. We got alerts on our phones and stuff. They said we were going to have 1 to 2 inch size hail. We were going to have tornadoes, stuff we never get here. Somebody even showed this picture saying this is what they're kind of predicting, right? And nothing happened. Like the rainstorm was less than we ever usually get. Once again, it's more of just making sure they put this fear into you, fear everything in the world. And so that didn't happen here. Meanwhile, it doesn't seem like anyone's talking about. So in South Korea, they're having wildfires. And
it's a worldwide phenomenon that's going on right now. It's not just in one place. Yeah.
This is North Carolina, or I'm sorry, what is it? South Carolina? North Carolina. But the Carolinas have been on fire already once. So that's happening. And then now there was just this massive earthquake in Thailand where this one building that was under construction came down like that day in September out here. And so they're going through all kinds of things. But if you dare say that it's, weather warfare, which, you can find all the patents that they do that, you're called crazy.
Yeah.
So I'd like everyone to, keep all those places because there are real people that are being affected by these things, and keep everyone in their prayers. And don't forget, you're supposed to keep Israel in your prayers. How are these supposedly the chosen people?
We got every nation of people separated by timelines. You're in this part of time, you're in this part of time, you're in this part of time, because no matter where you go, you could live anywhere essentially and blend in eventually, but everybody has their own little culture, but their cultures are based around their ideologies
Right.
being based around what they believe to be true or not.
Right. And when I read the Bible and God's talking about the children of Israel, he means Jacob and the special children then. Jesus shows up and he's here for everyone. And so there's no longer this special children. And so that's where they're trying to keep us fighting, is to these people still believe they're the special chosen ones. But they're written about in Revelation, and it's no bueno.
Yeah, it's not good.
Nowhere do I see Abraham talking about wearing a hat like these. You know what I mean? I don't see that in the biblical scriptures.
No, it's.
I gotta tell you this funny story too. My wife and I, we were blessed to go to Europe, and we went into a store. We were just walking around, and we went into a store that they had these, and they sold all these different types of hats. And it's like that movie or any movie where like the wrong people walk into a biker bar and everyone stops and stares at you. So whatever conversations were going on, as soon as we walked in and we're looking around like, wow, look at all the cool hats, everyone stopped and stared at us. They didn't say a word to us. And we just started feeling so uncomfortable that we waved and smiled and turned around and walked out, and they locked the door behind us.
Yeah. You don't belong here. Like, what are you doing?
No. I could have showed them my card. I said, I could have shown them, hey, I'm allowed to buy one of these hats, but they weren't.
That's right. Yeah, they didn't know. That's because you weren't following along with their traditions.
Right. They branch off into the Talmud and all kinds of bizarre nonsense. So, all right, let's get off of that because I want to keep my channel up. And then, of course, the Israeli scientists are launching the chilling plan to block the sun. Now, this article just came out, but I've had multiple articles where Bill Gates was doing it. I think it was Harvard's doing it. They've talked about this so much, and they've proven that they are spraying the skies. And yet, still to this day, if you bring that up in just your regular life, people will think you're nuts, even though you can prove that they're doing it.
Correct. People choose what they want to believe.
Correct.
Has to make them feel good.
Yes. And meanwhile, they're telling us it's because of cow farts and stuff, and it's causing, quote, climate change, causing all these things. When yet they still do. Look at this. It's 50 million tires a year they ship to India, and they burn them. So, and you can also look up the, I think it's called, what is it, Recycle? Is it Recycle Wars, something like that? It's on YouTube. It's a BBC thing or something. It was on TV, but they proved that I think it was like 80% or more of recycled material just goes into landfills. They don't really recycle like they say they do. But then they charge you a second charge on your trash pickup. So isn't that nice?
Right. Yes, I thought that was funny. I seen a guy the other day. He was taking his trash out, and then he goes and gets his recycle bin. He comes over there, and he waves to me, and I said, I was laughing. And I said, "You know what's funny?" He said, "What's that?" I said, "Both of those go to the same place." And he just laughed. He said, "Golly, they got me." He goes inside.
Yeah, and they charge us double now for the same pickup. It's really wild.
Yeah.
And thank you for the super chat, Mad Pax. Thank you very much. God bless you. I really appreciate it. It's very, very helpful. Okay, what's next? Kentucky Fried People. Okay, wow, there's a lot of going on in the chat. Wow, there's so many people talking, I can't keep up.
Yeah, I don't know how you can keep up with that.
I can't. Everything's a scam, exactly.
Right.
Let's see. Let's go into.
It's always a full house though when it's the little season community, coming together.
Yeah.
And that's what I find fascinating about this whole thing is that, man, I didn't know any of you guys, and I didn't know anything about your channels or none of that. I had seen a couple things that people I used to follow, I don't know, they just stopped making videos. Most of who I used to follow, they got all the way up to the flat earth part, but then I don't know, they just fell off, and then it just became a constant flip, change the channel until I find something interesting. And most of you are saying the right stuff. It's just we all got to figure out a way to get us all together. And that's what I want to try to do. I want to try to bring us all together. I want to try to get. I want people to understand that you are not exactly alone in any of this, and that there's nothing to be afraid of, and there's nothing to be nervous about with it, and there's no harm in reaching out to each other. That's why I made certain things available, and for people. And I don't know, like you guys are like my therapy at the end of the day. That's how I feel about JT, yourself now, Paul, Colticon, Jason, Jack, Madeline, any of you guys. When I listen to you guys, it's like, okay, I needed this.
Well, it's interesting because I was the same way. I was in the flat Earth community, and then I realized none of them wanted to hear me talk about God. They wanted to only talk about flat Earth and then stop right there. Gatekeeping, basically. And then, of course, that community is blowing itself up. It's fun to watch. But I left that. That's why my beginning opening, it has, I'm not part of any community, club, fraternity, or gang. Your cat may vary. Because I was being accused of breaking up the community when I left. And I was like, this is not my community. It's a bunch of people that all woke up to this at the same time. And I continued on and found out that there's truth in God and the Bible and Jesus and all that. And they didn't want to hear it. So, I left. And then I started hanging out with some other people. But then the second I got into, say, the short season or little season pizza, then people walked away from me there too because they didn't want to hear that. So it's just like you keep finding these levels and you just have to keep pushing past them. And that's why I ended up just being myself, not really knowing anybody new until, I started, making these new connections with people that think like this on the short season, I was even with this really popular group, and they don't even talk about the Bible or Jesus anymore. It's mostly just all these occultic books. It's Midnight Ride people. They got the hat and stuff. And I had a really nice conversation, still on my channel with John Pounders. But I talk about the Mandela effect, and I don't know where your audience feels about that. We can cover that later. But because I discussed that with them, they went and did a hit piece on me the following night, calling me a heretic, and I was leading people to hell and all kinds of fun things. So you never know what's going to trigger someone.
Yeah. That's that whole drama network, If somebody, there always has to be somebody that has to have the tension on them. They can't come in the chat and, I know I don't have anything useful to say, but what I can do is I can stir the pot. And I think that's how a lot of that when they do that, it's just that trollish behavior. I don't know why that is. And I don't know why people are so in, just gotta be about themselves, That's where a lot of that comes from, that self-serving, selfish desire that's instilled in a lot of people. I don't know. I didn't have that opportunity. I was never raised to where I was allowed to just go on about myself and whatnot. And so I just
negative.
Right. It's just one of those things that, okay, so that's just the way everybody is nowadays. How do you deal with that? I don't know. Maybe I don't want to deal with it. So I just say, I'll just do my Bible study, and that way I can say, well, if you guys don't understand, there's a whole lesson for you, and that's why I did it like the episode way, so that I could keep it categorized. It's easier to find, not everybody needs to go over every book, nor do they want to. And some people may be stuck at this chapter or that chapter. And so the process of going through it line by line, well, it's just endless content on one hand, if you look at it from a worldly perspective, but looking at it, well, this is what God wants me to do. This is the gift he gave me. So it's a way to reach everybody, and I want to be able to say what people need to hear, because I've never had a situation really where anyone ever just said, hey, no, you're completely wrong necessarily, but whereas I might have had arguments about how I came to know I'm not wrong, perhaps, on certain things, where it's like, I don't understand how to explain it exactly, but what I can do is I can read this line and we can explain that one line. And if you can't see what I'm saying, then I think it's good to have like a whiteboard or some way to demonstrate that, like you do with your edits where your videos come in. It kind of goes along with the theme or the message or the topic of the evening, same in the same degrees. I've realized most people are actually visual learners, whether they realize it or not.
Yeah.
They're actually visual learners. You got to see what you're hearing. You can't just read it and go, a lot of us just don't have that in us. I'm one of those that I've had to learn how to look at it and go, well, what am I actually supposed to see with what they're saying? And when it comes to doctrines, that's a really confusing thing because everybody sees something different from the same words. And I didn't understand how that was even possible ever, but that's the excuse you get. And so how do you justify that? Well, there's no real way to justify it. It's kind of like the system we're in. It's not broken. It's just not good.
Yeah,
It's no, you know,
it works perfectly.
it's gonna get fixed because it's not broken. It's doing
No.
what it's designed to do.
Yeah.
It's
Okay.
designed to fail you here, build you up there, fail you here, and build you up there. You know?
All right, I'm going to keep screen sharing, but they're asking ad nauseum about puppies. What kind you have, and is there any of them you can show? So, but here's the thing. I just learned about this. How did I not know this existed? Did you know that they had medieval MMA?
That's my boy.
Going at it with blood sports, shields, and armor. Shields really interferes to get takedowns as well.
How did I not know that existed?
Come here.
Oh, you got a puppy? All right, let me get out of the screen share. And
he's actually kind of, well, now he's okay. He didn't want to get up here. He thought he was in trouble.
There he is. So what kind of dogs is
these? They're American Stafford Terriers.
Wow, that's a big dog.
Yep, he's a pretty good size dog. He's a big old strong boy. And my female, she is white with black spots like a cow. And so I call her Cowgirl.
All right.
And she's over there being a mama dog right now. And now he wants to stay up here in my lap. So they don't know how big and strong they are, but they are big and strong. They just don't realize it. I think they know to a degree, but
they don't realize how large they are either. I've noticed that.
Right.
Right. Okay. And if I know Ryan was in here. If I can get Sarah on screen, that's my cat. I'll have to maybe put together a playlist or something. I would cook things. It's a lot of editing. I would make a dish. I would show how I made it. And then at the end, I would play fight with my cat, Sarah. And because she knows karate. And I got to, I think, like 60 of those. And then I didn't have the time anymore. But if you find her, bring her in. So, okay. But let's get back into the amazing world of MMA medieval. What? Oh, Sarah, if you find her. This is medieval MMA. I can't believe it. Anyways. And I constantly get people who want me to have them as a sponsor on the channel. And I've never. Oh, you found her. Okay. Well, let me get back in here. Clickety click.
Get. There she goes. Hold on.
There she is. All right, Sarah, get them all. Get them all. Did you get them? Ryan, if you're still here, there's your Sarah moment. She doesn't really like being on camera much anymore, obviously. There she is. That's Sarah.
Yeah, well, we gotta deal with our fur babies. We can't just get rid of them. Now mine are so funny, man. Everybody's kind of afraid of them, but there's nothing to be afraid about. I'll be like, "Yeah, come over here and pet them," and they'll be like, "Are you sure?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I'm really sure. Come on." Like they're okay. You're okay. Trust me, you're safer around these dogs than you are anyone
Right.
else.
I don't know, especially the times that we find ourselves in. I don't know how people do it without some type of. I understand emotional animals now, because yeah, it's pretty wild. And I've got one. He's the smallest of the three, but it doesn't matter. Whenever I go to try to do that, what do you call that? Prostulous praying, where you put your head to the floor. He shows up. I don't know how he knows I'm doing it, and he wants me to get up. He's worried that I'm hurt or sad or something. They're pretty amazing, dogs and cats. But I was saying, I get people all the time asking me to do a what do you call it, sponsorship, and I've always turned them down. But if these people ever ask me to sponsor, I think this is fantastic.
I saw that the other night, and I thought, man, I don't know. I can't tell you how many times I would have loved to have one of those.
Right? So I don't know if they're watching, but that's fantastic. And it would fit my thing with the ceiling fan.
Yeah, they ought to send you a few, for you to test them out and review them. There you go.
Right? Exactly. So, okay, so let's get rid of that. And then I found this, that, of course, I understand that the Doge thing is more the magician's trick. They're pretending they're finding these things. Meanwhile, they're installing the B system behind it. I get it. But 53% of windmills are rotating backwards, which means they're acting like a motor rather than any kind of energy source. So isn't that interesting? And then this guy, he's supporting SpaceX by painting a SpaceX rocket on a Cybertruck.
Sure.
That was good.
Yeah, sure. We'll call it a rocket.
Right? That's what it is, right? And
yeah, absolutely.
And I thought this guy was really ingenious. He doesn't want anybody to vandalize his car. So he put Toyota on the back.
This isn't a Tesla.
No,
Don't
exactly.
burn it up.
It's a fascinating thing. Like I made a meme. It showed a guy. He either wants to push the button that says I'm saving the planet with my hybrid, Tesla car, or Elon's a Nazi, and he doesn't know which one, And the people that are vandalizing these cars, they're doing it to people that bought them before they switched on Elon. And it's quite fascinating to watch. Again, it's more of this construct that they make us think all of this stuff, it's part of the programming. But let's see what's next. And then this guy, he figured out how to fix potholes out in the country. And I thought this was genius.
Is this the one where he's yelling?
What's that?
I've seen one of these where the guy's going down the road and he's just,
No.
It gets worse and worse and worse, and he's just screaming and yelling about it.
No, he painted a Tesla rocket.
Holy mess.
Okay. And then a day and a half later, they were cleaning it up.
Yeah, because somebody called,
Right. They didn't want to see a Tesla rocket on the ground, so I thought that was pretty ingenious. And,
yeah, it's pretty fascinating. As long as no one says anything, people will, especially within the government, they will always do whatever they want, regardless if it's right or wrong. They will do whatever they want until someone says something. Someone has to say something. That's why they started coming out with all these terms like conspiracy theorist. I like to think I'm not a conspiracy theorist. I didn't come up with any of these conspiracy theories. I analyze them. So that makes me a conspiracy analyst. That's how I like to address that. I'm not a conspiracy theorist. I just analyze these conspiracies. Some of them have truth in them. Some of them don't.
Well, I thought this was a great representation of, I guess I have to read it here. It's magical because there's a planetary internet beneath our feet, and you can eat parts of it that grow out of the ground, and they can give you a spiritual experience. So I've said this before. Obviously, the earth is alive. It's a living creature just like everything else, because otherwise nothing would grow. You can't grow on, dead things don't grow living things. And so I thought this was an interesting thing because you can get psychedelic experience, I guess, off of something that comes out of the ground. So I thought that was an interesting interpretation. Because somebody said this too. They
Everything's connected.
And then another interesting thing that I've been thinking about, this gentleman made a comment that said, is that if you stop breathing, you don't immediately die. Your heart doesn't immediately stop. What happens? You lose consciousness.
Right.
And so
that's the first thing.
Breathes the breath of life into us, and we cut that off. It separates our consciousness. I thought that was an interesting way of thinking of that. So
yeah, it's fascinating.
Right? That's all in the words. Okay, and then I got to think, Mad Pax, having sandwich and an iced tea. Absolutely, I will. I will take the wife out. I do that with the monies that I get here. I splurge. We'll go out and eat or something. So thank you. Or pay bills. Sometimes it's to pay the StreamYard bill. Those things keep going up. It's ridiculous. So thank you.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and this is the other thing about this community. They're not just loving and accepting, and they're very giving, and
they're very generous. That is a fact.
Yeah.
I've never seen such a. I mean, giving just to give,
Right.
It's not. No one's compelled, other than through, I guess, a love for one another, a love for the truth. I think that's the one main thing we all share, is that we all share a love for the truth, and regardless of what it is, we're willing to accept it. Like I'm willing to be wrong in this. I'm willing to have a Bible study and then read my comments and someone correct me and go, and so that on the next episode I can go, well, you know what? I was reading that comment and I looked at it again, and it does say I'm crazy.
What they say, was it iron sharpens iron, that kind of thing, or something like that?
Exactly.
And this one, I talked about the color orange last week, and of course this meme showed up, and I thought it was hilarious. And I need to make this clear. There is orange in nature, right? Sweet potatoes, cantaloupes, there's things that are orange. But if it comes out of a processed thing, it's got something in it that's not good for you. Everything has, and pick your battles. But this is one of the things I love. I do my best not to eat those anymore. But isn't that a great meme?
Yeah, that's funny. I was watching I don't know, a YouTube video about some guy that made all this music in the music industry, and he was telling about a song that he had written, and he was showing it to the guy, and the guy listened to it 3 times, and at the end of it he goes, "What do you think?" And he goes, "Well, that song makes me feel orange." And so that's what that reminded me of when I saw that.
That's funny. Okay, and then this is wild. Apparently, I guess we're with Canada.
The old relationship we had with the United States, based on deepening integration of our economies and tight security and military cooperations, is over.
I just find this fascinating. Like, wouldn't this be exactly how we go to war with Canada? Nobody would know.
Yeah. Like, did this happen? Like, well, I'll be honest, like, I didn't realize Trudeau had stepped down. I was like, someone told me that the other day, and I was like, oh man, they're next door. Why don't I know? Why don't I know about my neighbors?
This guy takes over, and he immediately says, "It's over, buddy."
Yeah.
So yeah, I found this interesting. That that would be how you get a war with Canada. You don't know what's happening. That's funny.
Yeah.
Okay. And then, of course, for the people that are still in the queue, and if you are, you need to get out of it. I went through that, and I can explain it to you maybe on another night. But isn't this interesting? He's buying into this. He puts this up in Mar-a-Lago because it's another trap. It's another control. They want you to think that he is here to save you, and they want you to think that this queue is really going to get all the bad billionaires and put them in jail. They've never put anyone in jail ever.
Well, it's what they all do. They all tell you what you want to hear.
Right.
And right now, we want to hear you're going to make it better for us. And so he says that, and he does that until they get what they want. That's anybody within the game, then that's all this is. Big chess game. Big.
People forget he's the one that started in 2020 all the nonsense that went down there, with all the things I can't even talk about to this day on YouTube.
Yeah.
So, and the way we learn now that space is fake in the way they tell us, and he creates Space Force, and just the list goes on and on. But it's just like the dispensationalism. You have to forget what you're seeing and pretend that Jesus is coming back 2,000 years in the future, just like this. You have to forget all the things you see, how he's tied into the entire system, and pretend he's here to save us. And yeah,
right.
Same idea.
None of them really care about anybody.
No. Then he's
but
got
themselves.
This gal who's a nut job is his advisor, spiritual advisor. She's the one I think that he just hired, and she'd had like affairs with other spiritual advisors and throws the Bible on the ground and speaks in tongues and all this stuff. Now she says that if you give $1,000 before Easter, it'll unlock 7 supernatural blessings. It's like, you're doing it wrong, right? You're just not getting it. That's anyways, it's enough of them.
So
in the smoke and mirrors, they always put it in there. There's your number, 33. So whenever you see that, this is again something that's just deceiving you.
It's just people don't know that they're seeing it over and over. It's already ingrained in their subconscious.
Right.
It's so normal. It's like when you're driving down the highway, you don't realize how fast you're going. You just go, and then you don't see all the stuff beside you because you're not looking at that. You're not paying attention to that. It's there. So you look at the numbers. There's numbers there, but you don't know why they put that in there. You don't know what it means. Most people don't. Just like when they say they're going to have this tax cut or that tax cut, and this is going to make it better for the American economy. They're not talking about you and me, the ones going to the grocery store. They're talking about the ones that own the grocery store. That's who they're talking about. And a lot of people don't.
And they just throw that out there to make people think something's happening. But like the money that they're saving, they don't tell you where it's going. Oh, it's going back into the economy, so we'll spend less next year. Or it's going back. They're not saying where it's going. The first time Trump was in president, he threw everyone $500. This time he said he was going to give everyone 5,000. And he was going to shut down the the IRS and no more income tax. And they were going to go through and find all the gold in Fort Knox. None of that's happened. None of it. And we're on to the next stupid thing.
I've realized today, I was talking with a guy about this in a way, and I said, what's going on is the issue. I think is that the ultimate reason to deny the words of Christ or to want to change them so that people don't know we're in the little season. The only benefit, real benefit to that, you could look at this thing like, well, they're only gonna allow us to know the things that keep us grounded within the body of the system so that we're completely dependent upon it. Every decision you make, and this is where people get confused about God and answering prayers. If you're not on the path, God don't know you. Why would he answer your prayer? You're praying about stuff that he tells you not to pray about. And what I mean by this is that we'll get so far off this path and all of a sudden things don't work out. You get a speeding ticket, but all of a sudden this bill's due and that bill's due, and now the economy is going up, and now we have inflation, and now you can't afford that, and so now you're in a situation where you have to pick and choose what you can and can't pay. So you got to pay that ticket. You don't want to go to jail, and so maybe but if you do that, you may not have enough money to buy groceries or pay the light bill. So you're going to pray and pray and pray and pray, and through the grace of people like the ones in this community, you can ask the people you care about for help, and they will help you. The just sitting in there praying though over that, you're asking for God to come off of the path to get on the same path you're on, and because that's what you would have to do to get up to where we're at within it. When we will pray for things and we'll want our lives to be better, but ultimately it'll never get better for anyone, prayer or not, without understanding the truth. And that's goes back to my people are destroyed for a lack of knowledge. And that's with all of this. I sit here and I read those articles that you put up, and we see all these subliminal messaging within mainstream media. You see it everywhere. I think we've all seen the video where you have all the different news channels are all saying, the same thing. This is a threat to democracy. They keep saying democracy, and I'm scratching my head going, why are they calling it a democracy? We're not a democracy. I mean, when did this happen? When did we become that? I'm tired of people telling me essentially what is true, what is real, and what is not real, while at the same time giving me nothing to go off of. Just believe me. Just believe what I'm saying. And if you don't believe what they're saying, because all these 10 million people over here actually do believe what they're saying, then it's like, well, you're the odd one and you're the problem. And it's amazing to me because of you guys doing what you're doing. It gives me the I guess the courage to say, I can finally get up there and talk. So back to where we began, with all of this. Yeah, I'm appreciative of what you're doing and having this show and this opportunity to be here. Man, this is amazing. I was over here looking at chat, man. I wouldn't know how to respond without wanting to respond to all of them. And you can't. They're moving too fast.
I go back through and I look at the chat later after the show. I'll skim it and see what was said. And then things like this I can't even still talk about to this day. But there's that article. There's this new one that came out where this gal, she got a case of the world's most deadly infection after she was given the wrong MMR. And my question to that is, so they're admitting that you can get the wrong one and it causes, like, none of this makes any sense if you're getting medicine and it causes an infection, even if it was the wrong one. See, but they don't let us talk about these things and question it. They keep us stymied to where, like, this gentleman went on air and talked about how great it was and everyone should get it. And he just passed away, leaving behind his beautiful wife and a bunch of children named George. Yeah,
that's interesting. That is very interesting.
It's all inverted in that. I'm wondering how she had like 8 kids. So
yeah.
But anyways, sad to see George go. He inventor of the Foreman grill, I guess.
I often wonder what part of their contract that they fulfill.
Yeah.
When it comes to all these celebrities as they pass on. I mean, I don't mean to undermine their passing. It's a tragedy regardless of who they are. But at the end of the day, I still look at it like, well, you put yourself there,
But did they pass or do they just the character passes? That's another question.
Right.
Get the answer to.
Yeah. Is this real, what we're seeing on the news?
Just going back to what we were discussing a minute ago about how they're pushing the certain narratives. Like there's only about 4 news stories going on right now. One of them is this, the Ark of the Covenant. There's a CIA document that was actually released in 2000. I don't know why it took them 25 years to make this a news article. But in it, they said that they're doing, what do they call it? Remote viewing. And they found the Ark of the Covenant, supposedly, allegedly. And which, if they did, it's no bueno, because that thing had power throughout the Bible. But
they can read Wi-Fi signals like infrared, the way you would read infrared. They can hone in on that Wi-Fi signal and they can get an image of your entire living room, your office, your bedroom, just off the Wi-Fi signal.
And I don't know if you remember, there was a movie with Ray Schreider called Blue Thunder, and they had this technology where they could see right through the walls and stuff. So they tell you in TV and movies, they've been doing it for a long time. So if they did find it, I also found it interesting is, this came out several months ago that Trump had a quote unquote exact replica. So there's that. Or is it a replica?
Right. Is it a replica? It's like it could be one of those truth in plain sight things,
Right.
Like here's all your buildings, but we're not going to tell you what they are. Just like they're never going to admit that that's the real thing, even if it were. They'd be, if they're trying to keep a secret, you're not going to admit to it. Period. Even you, just the same as you wouldn't tell them where it's at if you were hiding it.
Exactly. So these are the news stories that they were pushing, and I found it interesting. It was the Ark of the Covenant. It's all over the internet. The what was it? The pyramid you were mentioning, how they found all the structures beneath it and stuff. Suddenly that's like everywhere, you can't get away from it. And the third one is suddenly everyone's talking about the Shroud of Turin again.
Yep, that's big again. And then next year it'll be the same dinosaur that they done found 1,000,000 times.
But what I found interesting is all three of these things are also on this Illuminati card deck. Shroud of Turin, Pyramid, Ark of the Covenant. So they're continuing along with this magic deck or whatever this thing is. I found that interesting, right?
Yeah, that is pretty neat. That's interesting. Very interesting.
Because it goes along and shows you they are forcing these things down us. This is what they want us to talk about. It's not a coincidence. There are no coincidences.
The whole world is a stage.
Right. Okay. What's this? Let me skip past some of these and get to.
Dang, that is a lot of taps.
I know. That's what I gotta move forward so we should get to the animals, but first I definitely want to discuss. I'm fascinated with this story. The new Snow White.
Oh my goodness, yeah. So I love seeing Disney fall and crumble. They are falling to pieces. Every movie and show they put out now, they lose and lose and lose, and it's so hilarious. They don't seem to understand that it doesn't matter how hard you push this. I'll bet you the more you have your videos, the more I have my videos, the more Connor talks, the more JT talks, the more Paul talks, the more all of us talk about this, we end up outnumbering these people that are trying to push this crazy, silly mess that they do in Hollywood. We will eventually outnumber that. You can't, for all the, you just really think about it, like all the people that have ever struggled or suffered, this is a solution to all of that. It helps you understand every bad thing that you go through in your life, every bad thing you're gonna go through in your life, whether it's cancer or a loved one or a girlfriend and boyfriend breakup or something that you deal with in your life. All the answers to how to deal with it are in this book. It tells you how to feel and how to have peace and joy, and I feel like in a lot of ways that if I could just get all the people around me to be this way, God will see it and go, hey, well, you know what, maybe we don't have to be so bad on them this time. We'll just snap and bring them over here to this new world. But we don't, it ain't gonna be like that because we're too stubborn.
Right.
We're just not gonna ever accept a world where everybody has it made. Like I don't understand how that's a bad thing, but
it's written though, and we keep forgetting, and we go through this cycle again, and God has to shake us and wake us up. So, but I find this story fascinating because she was such a polarizing person, and IMDb, I've never seen a number this low. It keeps going down every day. It's currently at a 1.5 out of 10.
Oh, wow.
And I looked it up. There's a movie that Paris Hilton did that's a better score. There's one by Kirk Cameron that's a better score. There's just like, It's
And she's supposed to be popular, she's supposed to be somebody,
yeah. And then yeah, see, at this point, what is this? This was the 24th. It was 2 out of 10. Now it's at 1.5 right now, as we say here. And it's just everything. And I like the names. It says toe curling terrible, the most controversial Disney adult nightmare ever, good enough for TV. I mean, it's crazy.
When I hear her talk, I feel like I'm 100 foot tall and she's an ant and she's talking to me like she can whoop me or something. I'm like, man, like your narcissism is off the charts. It doesn't work with your frame. Like the only way to have that mentality is to be of the mindset that other people are always going to come to your aid, and they will, as long as they also benefit from it. Like, trust that those guards do not jump in front of those bystanders moments just because they love their whoever it is they're bodyguarding for, but they do it for the money. And that's how all of that is. She's doing all that for the money, but at the same time, she thought she was gonna set a new wave and a new trend, like men are something to be defeated or something, and it just backfired. You got too many young girls looking at that going, but my daddy's great. It doesn't.
She ruined it so bad that they canceled this Pocahontas starring Dylan Mulvaney. I wouldn't doubt it that they would try that, honestly. But the fact that they're trying to,
Ed Sheeran plays Martin Luther King.
What's that?
I said Ed Sheeran as Martin Luther King.
And they talk about it all the time on Netflix, where they switch the gender or the race of everyone. But the one that they'll never touch is Tarzan's story. They can't change that. He has to stay white.
Yeah, that's right.
No,
if they change it, it's racist.
Exactly. So yeah, she's supposed to be jealous of her. Sure, okay. And I thought this was interesting. The guy that his son that was a producer on this, he went on a total tirade rant about how she put all these other people that have to earn their living off of this movie at risk because she has to speak her truth, and there's times when you're not, you can hold your tongue and not affect all these other people, but she didn't care, or that was the way it was programmed. Maybe this whole thing is to bring awareness to, I don't know what. It's hard to know what's real and what isn't anymore. But they also showed this. They have a P. Diddy white party at the end of the movie.
Oh my goodness.
I mean, who didn't see this after all that was in the news? That he has these white parties.
I mean, what does that symbolize? We don't know. It's all in your face, every bit of it. Now they're doing it on a mocking level because they know a lot of us are aware, and but then a lot of us can't really do anything or feel like we can't do anything, and the establishment knows that, and they mock us while at the same time making money off of the deluded and the ones under the delusions. They're making money off of the ones that are ignorant of what's going on in these films.
If I could get to my drop, I'd hit that. That's very true. That's exactly it, what you just said there. So, all right. And then this. They switched the bird out. I thought this was a joke, but it's real. It's from the movie.
Oh, my goodness. They went hardcore change.
Yeah, no kidding.
And one of them is sitting home watching people scream and yell about this, and they're at home laughing their butts off, knowing that they're responsible in some way for this change that's triggered all these people.
Right.
They don't, like when you'll see like Disney fire this person because they get in trouble, or Disney does this, and that gives the illusion that Disney actually cares what the fans and parents think. But this is, if you can't look at all this proof. It's not proof. Maybe am I not seeing what I'm seeing? Is that what you're trying to tell me? That's how silly and stupid do they think we are? Very. They think we're all dumb, stupid. That's what they think.
And this is a perfect transition because I did want to talk about animals before the night gets completely away from us.
Is that a crow or a raven?
I think it looked like a vulture.
Or vulture? Yeah. It does kind of have the vulture head, but
yeah. But
it's like it's a CGI, whatever. It's AI, regardless.
Right. Like the dwarves too. So
right.
Yeah, we're yelling pandas. But before I ever talked about pandas, I was talking about birds. And since a lot of people are new to me, here's what I'll do. I'll go over. Let me stop this for a second and look at you all. Okay, so check this out, Rev. This is my theory. We can agree. It says a third of the angels fell from heaven, and they're the ones messing with us, right? We get that.
Right.
But what we can't forget is that means, if you do the math, 2/3 of the angels are still with God, doing his bidding, trying to help us out in any way possible.
Correct.
Now, if we saw some like big cherub looking thing, or even worse, the ones Ezekiel saw, like the crazy things. I mean,
with all the eyes.
Yeah. Every time someone sees an angel, the first thing the angel says is, "Don't be afraid," because they freak people out every single time. I haven't found a single passage where someone, isn't afraid and told not to be afraid. Even Jesus himself, don't be afraid. And so,
that was with his glorified body.
Right. So if God had angels flying around with cherubs and cigars and wings going, "What's up?" It'd freak people out if you saw that stuff going on. What wouldn't freak people out? Birds. Now, here's my theory on birds. I have this coincidence shelf that I learned from this gentleman, Steve Jambo. You put things on the coincidence shelf and eventually, it breaks, or we had to get a storage shed. But birds have wings. Angels have talked about having wings. They both fly. Birds in the Bible, God says are of what? The heavens.
Right.
Same with the angels, right? In addition to that, there's rare that you, if ever, have you seen a dead bird die of old age? Most of the time, where do they go? You never see them. And if you do, it's from trauma, right? Gets hit by or whatever.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So there's a whole bunch of birds that are missing. Now, when you're sitting somewhere, let's say, so for instance, let's say you had a bird in your house in a cage, which I don't agree with, but people have them. And you talk to that bird, or even your dog, you talk to it, it has a name, that's allowed. If you're outside in nature, sitting in the park, and you start talking to a bird or a squirrel with no name, people think you're crazy, right?
Right.
So most of the time what people do is they do that kind of like blinded thing, like when you see an old building and you don't understand how it was made in the 1800s with donkeys and hand tools, you just don't even register it. And it's the same with birds. We don't register it. We just call them birds, right? And what partly woke me up to this is there was a time when I would go out, because we have chickens, and I would go out to the chicken coop in the morning, and there was this bird in this one tree right above is where I was walking, singing a song. And I started to notice this pattern. The same bird was in the same tree every morning singing the same song. And so I named him Chuck because I like to say, "What's up, Chuck?" And when I started to talk to him, he stopped. And he looked like he sees me. He knows me. You know what I mean? So it's like...
Right. Like he's aware of me.
Right.
I've been singing this whole time.
And I'm not saying, again, there's no absolutes in my mind. I'm not saying all birds are angels. I'm saying they're mixed in because you never know. You just dismiss it as a bird. And we know that they can take any form, any shape when you're an angel. We get that. I mean, Satan himself, serpent and whatever, dragon, whatever. And so I'm putting this out there again. I've discussed this. I did a whole show on it. It's not there anymore. I had to take it down. But an entire show where I've discussed this idea that some of these birds are angels that are here with us, helping us. And then the rest of them, and this goes back, spirituality and mysticism and all that stuff has always been around birds. And you go all the way back to the stories of what was his name? Odin. And he had two ravens, Hugin and Munnin. And I think one of them, I think Hugin, what is it? I wrote it down because I forgot. Hugin was he looking for the hanged and Munnin for the slain. But regardless, he would send them out allegedly, and they'd cover the whole earth, and they'd come back and report to him. And so birds have gone through history being some type of spiritual animal. And when you get into, say, crows and ravens, I mean, the fact that they can even speak English.
With you. What's up? Not much. What's up? Who's your good bird? What's up? Who's your good bird? What's up? Say it in my voice. What's up? No.
That's wild, ain't it?
Yeah.
You know, they have a bird that sounds like someone saying help.
Yeah.
And there's I can't remember what it was, what I was watching it on, but it was one of those, shorts or reels or something. And so this guy ends up pulling over, and he's walking off into the woods chasing after this bird. He don't know it's a bird though. He hears someone yelling for help. And so he's hello, and it's almost like it's one of those like intense videos where your anxiety levels are supposed to get raised up with it, but there's no conclusion. It's just at the end, it just ends. He's still looking for this, but it was a bird. There's a bird that makes that sound. That's crazy. And then
what I find fascinating is because we're in the upside down, backwards world that we live in. Anything in TV and movies and whatever, they always try to portray specifically crows and ravens as harbingers of death and destruction and bad times and stuff. When in reality, like, we have two ravens that live out here in somewhere around our property, and they chase off the birds that would want to kill my chickens, like the hawks and the eagles and stuff. And we've had corn grow once in a while. My wife does all kinds of different gardening depending on the year. And they never touched the corn. We didn't need a scarecrow. They've never done anything negative to us. They've always sort of been helpful. And so I think that's another thing where, the Albert Hitchcock and the birds and whatever, they always show them as
well, it's illegal to have them as a pet.
Is it really?
Yeah.
Well, they have us as pets, I guess, because they hang out up there.
Yeah. It's kind of weird. Like it's never for your safety, like they say. It's never for you. It's never necessarily for the benefit of the animal or the environment. But when they make these rules, people will go, well, see, there's a good reason for that. There's a good reason, and it has to be a good reason, because they wouldn't make these rules that say you can't do this if there wasn't a good reason behind it. And that's how people have, that's that irrational thought that has people going, all right, if you say to pay you this much money every week, I will. Tax man or whoever it is trying to extort something out of you, whether it's energy or money or knowledge, or in this case, I think it's our souls. They're trying to get, they want to get as many souls to hell. They don't care if you like it or not. You don't have to choose. You don't have to want to go to hell. You don't have to want to, be damned. You could want to be saved, still be damned though. And that's where they want you,
Stairway to heaven and a highway to hell, depending on the amount of traffic, right?
Right. Yeah, exactly.
All right. So let's see. On a side note, I like to get this out there because most people don't. Bird watching. It's named after the Audubon. It's the Audubon Society. It's named after this guy, John Audubon, who I'm sure was a Mason. But what most people don't know, and you can do this own research, we found out because we ended up at a museum that talked about him, and it blew me away. The guy was a hunter, and he was an artist that could draw well. And so the way that he categorized birds, he would shoot and kill them, and then he would draw them. So he's really one of the biggest mass murderers of birds in history, and he's celebrated by the Audubon Society. And you could see, like, At one time or another, Audubon killed specimens of all but a handful of the more than 400 species of birds he ultimately painted. And most of the quadrupeds of North America, from squirrels to alligators to moose.
See, I know we're gonna offend a lot of people here, especially down in the South where they love to hunt,
Yeah.
But it is one of those things where you got to wonder, why are we fascinated with killing something
Well,
that's
I just find it
has no reason to be killed?
The bird lovers, they have no idea. I mean, every painting of him, he's got a gun with him. And
Right.
I read a story where they were out on a boat. He saw a bird that he hadn't seen before, and everyone on the boat pulled out their guns. They killed this entire flock of birds so they could catch that one bird he hadn't drawn before. It's nuts when you see everything so backwards and upside down.
Yeah, killing for sport,
Right,
the whole game of it.
So you can draw a
Need,
picture.
necessity, or to be able to use it is one thing. He's feeding his family. Well, yeah, praise him. He kill enough to feed your family, but killing all that and doing all that for sport, it's a totally different thing.
To draw a picture, exactly. Okay, so someone mentioned pigeons. Now, here's my idea on pigeons. Like I said, not all birds are angels, and not all birds are birds. Pigeon is a weird thing. They're pretty much just in the cities. You've never seen this. No one has in real life. This is supposedly a baby pigeon, which looks like some weird monster creature. I don't even know what's going on here.
Yeah,
And the way this works is, when you look it up, when a pigeon is born, they stay with the mother in the nest until they've grown up enough to look like a regular pigeon. And then that's what you see. Meanwhile, they say the nests are so high, you can never find them. You don't find pigeon eggs or pigeon babies. What you do find is a bird that lives in a city that has been proven time and time again, at least on my channel, to have some sussiness to them. Like, for instance,
I just caught this today.
what's that? What are those characters? Like,
That is interesting.
right? I mean, there's a whole fascination with pigeons where they say pigeons aren't real, and
There's somebody in some small corner of the world looking at a pigeon egg going, look at these crazy guys.
Well, and when I brought this up before, it's interesting. The people that get mad at me about talking about the little season, and the people that get mad at me talking about Mandela effect, I had a lot of I don't want to say angry, but people that were very insistent that I was wrong about pigeons because they know someone that raises them, and Mike Tyson raised them, and I get that. But there's a majority of them that we don't know anything about in these cities, and I can prove to you that they've used them multiple times for drones. This just came out, what was it, in August of last year, where they they're drones. If you saw that up in the sky,
you would know.
Yeah, and I'm sure they have better ones than this. This is just what they're showing us. You know what I mean? I went to the spy museum that was traveling around, and they showed a dragonfly that they had as a drone back in the 50s or something. So what's the technology they have nowadays? And then let's see, do they have another one, or is that all? Yeah. So whatever's going on with the pigeons, and I think it was interesting too. There's a gentleman that I do shows with occasionally, and he made me this. He did the drawing, and it's a pigeon. It says, "I'm watching you." It's got like robot stuff to it.
That's a cool shirt,
isn't it? Yeah. So there's my ideas on birds. Some are just birds. Some might be angels, and some are some kind of like drone. So that's my thoughts on birds. Now, I know somebody had mentioned in the chat too, what's my thought on kangaroos. There's a lot of weirdness to kangaroos.
Oh man,
the fact that they have like this third tail here.
Now we're into that. Now we're in the cryptid territory.
Yeah, because I don't know what some of these things are. Maybe they're chimeras or however you say that. But you got a thing with this. It uses its tail to stand and also to jump with. It keeps the babies in a pouch. They look like these little larva creatures. I guess I didn't have a picture of them.
Well, it makes you wonder because your mind wants to tell you that all animals have a purpose and all creatures have a reason. Why else would they be here? When you see stuff like that, it's kind of like the panda.
Yeah.
What purpose do they serve?
We're heading there. We're on our way there. But there's a lot of weirdness on this. I don't know exactly about these, but they also have this weird thing they can do where they can get an egg ovulated or pregnant, and then decide there's not going to be enough food, and they can put it on hold. It was the weirdest thing.
Wow.
Where is it? I'd never heard of this thing before.
With like a stasis mode.
Yeah. Where'd it go? It's in here somewhere. Yeah, here you go. Embryonic diapause. So if they realize that there's not going to be a lot of food, like in a drought or poor food sources,
Right.
they can pause the pregnancy. I don't understand. I mean, hey, God does some crazy things with things, so I don't know what's going on with these things. I'd have to do a deeper dive on kangaroos, and I'm not ready for it. It's also weird that they jump around, but then they fight like a boxer. It's like there's a lot of weirdness.
If Brian were here, this is right up his alley. He loves talking about them kangaroos.
I'll have to listen to see if he's got more information on it, but I haven't done a deep dive on roos. Then, of course, I went over the platypus. Now, this is a definitely a sus creature, and the reason I say that is the number one thing I saw on it I thought was really wild is the first one they ever found was fake. So
really,
yeah, someone if I can find it in this article, maybe
someone made one at a taxidermy.
Yeah, the first time they ever discovered one, it was fake. Where is it? It was on here somewhere. But anytime you have something fake, then you start questioning it. Yeah, here we go.
The first
platypus counted by Europeans in 1798, a pelt and a sketch were sent back, and the scientists' initial hunch the attributes were a hoax. So something going on.
Makes you wonder, like, what all kind of creatures did they have to splice together to make that thing?
Right. Because as in the days of Noah, they were doing stuff, which brings me full circle to the panda again, and for those people that are wondering why there's a lot of panda talk, is when I came across this, I just couldn't get past it. So real quick, if you don't know, they only exist in China. No one's ever seen them in the wild, only on TV. All the ones in the zoo are on loan from China. They charge money. It's a huge money-making business for China. You can watch tons of videos where all they do is just fall over on themselves. There's no way they can survive in the wild. They only eat one thing, which is bamboo, which they can't digest it because they're a carnivore diet. So 99% of what they eat, they don't get any nutritional value from. They eat all the time. They poop all the time. They urinate upside down in trees. They only mate one time a year where there's I think it's 24 or 48 hours, and that's it. And if a panda ends up with twins, it lets one die and just keeps one. It just the list goes on. And of course, they faked this so many times. That's where my whole my panda videos came from, is because they got caught more than once with dogs that they painted chows in the zoo. Here, we have a moment. I'll show you.
It's like the one where the people are wearing like panda suits and stuff.
Yeah, they also have that too. Yeah.
All
right, here, I'll give you the original one and then my updated one here.
I think pandas are sus.
Is my parents' dog moonlighting as Panda?
Mutual of Omaha's Wild Kingdom, brought to you by Silly Fan Man. Lions and tigers and bears, oh my! The thrill of victory and the agony of defeat. Today's episode, how pandas are made.
Thanks. So that was the first one, right? And then this is my most recent now, because I've got 10 of them now. It just kind of grew. People were like all excited. I was talking about pandas. So here's the newest one.
Mutual of Omaha's Wild Kingdom, brought to you by Silly Fan Man. Lions and tigers and bears, oh my! The thrill of victory and the agony of defeat. Today's episode, how pandas are made.
Panda.
Satellite tracking continues.
These are the things that make me laugh, and then my mental illness on all of you that show up. So,
does the algorithm help you with that?
I don't know if anything helps, honestly. So, okay. So that's pandas. We finish on panda, I think, for now. And there's a new thing I just discovered reading about it. The discovery of the panda in 1869 which is a weird thing. Like, it's not even on the Chinese, what do you call it, horoscope, but it's on their money and coins and stuff. And it's like the national symbol, but it wasn't discovered till 1869 by who?
Right.
A French Jesuit missionary. Well, there you go.
And then they have the dragon. They'll have a dragon, but they won't have that. But they don't have a panda. So which one is real and which one isn't?
And then another discovery I made while I was doing this for this show. There's apparently in raw bamboo arsenic, and so they say they don't know how, but somehow they've managed to make their stomach lining okay that they can eat a certain amount of arsenic every day. Like, it doesn't make any sense.
It really doesn't make sense. It's like they could just ingest acid.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I guess people will argue this, because would obviously argue this, because they'll say things like, well, you have stomach acids, and that's normal. Well, that's not arsenic, though.
Right.
It's a different type of thing. But they'll be stuck on their levels of thought because of stuff like that.
Yeah.
The educated mind, it's a wild thing. Sometimes it's good and sometimes it's not good.
Let's see if I can find that. Where'd it go? Yeah, here, check this out. Like, in all of my research of pandas, how I missed this until just the other day or yesterday. It's right here. Raw bamboo is toxic, containing cyanide compounds. The panda's bodies or tissues are less able than herbivores to detoxify. All right, so now we just said that it's toxic, it contains cyanide, and they have less ability to detoxify it.
Right.
But their gut microbes are significantly enriched in BS, suggesting they have cyanide-digesting gut microbes. It's estimated that an adult panda absorbs however many milligrams this is. There's our favorite number, 66.
They got to throw it in there.
They got to
And
cover
there's a 369 in there somewhere.
right?
Just got to add it a certain way, once you figure out the pattern.
So they eat this much cyanide every day. And to prevent poisoning, they've evolved. There we go with the evolution. They got to add all of their scams together. Antitoxin mechanisms to protect themselves.
They're super animals.
So there's a new thing they add to your panda thing. They eat tons of cyanide and it has no effect on them. So
they can walk on the sun.
I've heard that too.
Their fur is impervious to the particles that make the flame.
And so it goes back to the chimera. Some pandas are, dogs. Some are probably men in suits, and others are some weird creature that was created in a lab or something, as in the days of Noah over in China, because it doesn't seem like a natural animal at all to me. And what I find interesting is going kind of back to the kangaroo talk. I love reading, besides the Bible, the extra books that allegedly were taken out, or maybe, I don't know. God, there's times when Jesus discusses and says, that's written in the book of Jasher, or that's written in the, so he mentions Enoch, he mentions these other books. And when you read the book of Jasher, you come to this passage. I believe it's Jasher 26, I think, where they come to this area and they see these creatures. And those animals from their middle downward were in the shape of children of men. And from their middle upward, some had the likeness of bears, some the likeness of keepas, which it's really hard to find out what that actually looks like, with tails behind them from between their shoulders reaching down to the earth. Now, doesn't that sound like a kangaroo?
Yeah, it does.
Like the tails of the
it does.
I don't know. It's hard to find what that looks like. And these animals came and mounted and rode upon the asses, the donkeys that were there. And they led them away, and they went away unto this day. And one of the animals approached Anna and smote him with his tail, and then fled from that place. And they never went back. They fled, and they took, I wouldn't blame them. But isn't that interesting?
Yeah, that is interesting. So I'm actually doing a Jasher series right now, and we're doing a line by line breakdown. The reason I was going over Jasher was because it's actually like it comes before the Bible. It wouldn't be in the Bible had it come after the Bible. It wouldn't make sense. So it comes before it, and then I realized it's an adult version of the same events, but in the way they still are trying to figure out the things that they're seeing and telling you about. In Genesis, it just kind of simplifies it and clarifies it for you. Then that is fascinating, though.
So these are supposedly carvings of those animals. So that's kind of interesting. This would be the keepa with the bare head, and then this would be that with the long tail. I don't know. It's I just find it fascinating. So there is evidence of weird creatures throughout history. I mean, the Egyptians had all these weird, dogman heads, and there's a guy that looks like a beetle, and I mean, who knows what they were doing? God talks about it, and then it makes sense when he would tell. Like when I first read the Bible, I'm like, wait, they're going in and they're killing everything, man, woman, child, and animal. Well, yeah, because they were all probably corrupted into this weird whatever's going on, and yeah. So
that's what it says. Only the animals that bowed to him went on the ark. See, not all of them bowed to him,
right?
So, but it's the same thing. Just like all the men, they didn't bow to him. In other words, the men didn't repent. That's what their problem was. If they would have just turned away, God gave them all the way up until the first raindrop. All the way up until the last minute. They had full understanding of everything that was going on. It's what I don't get about this generation we're in. We're so smart. We know so much, but yet we're the first real generation to not believe in like just absolute truth in scripture and in a God. There's always some kind of mental gymnastics that has to go along with it. And when it comes to those apocryphal books like Jasher, Enoch, all of that, the way I've always seen it is that as long as what I'm reading doesn't contradict the Bible,
Right.
then what I'm reading is okay. It's when people look at it and go, well, like for example, Zechariah's stitching. They'll read that and they'll go, well, see, the Bible, this is all, it just contradicts the Bible. So the Bible must be false. Well, now you've put, well, all your faith is in this. It's not even in the word, if that's the case. But that's essentially what we've done. Instead of that, wouldn't make sense to people to say it like that with Zechariah stitching. So instead, replace that with, I've got a doctorate, I've got a PhD, I've got a well-established business. I own 18 Domino's stores or whatever. There's always these different reasonings that people will end up developing throughout society to justify their own measures in their own ways. We do that with everything. And when we see things that are right in front of us, like you're pointing out all these images of these pandas, we've been trained to look at that and not pay attention to it. It's like they don't want us talking what we're talking about, really, ultimately. But somehow they're I think the reason why you and I are able to talk, the reason why JT is able to talk, and the reason all this is going on is because they've really lost control on the other end of it. And they're looking at this and going, well, wait a minute, this is pulling people together. How can we capitalize on this? And that's where you're going to get some people that are going to come into the Little Caesar community with selfish agendas. They're not going to be in it for the right reasons. It's kind of like where I had mentioned before about Andrew Tate. People like that, people dismiss him, and yeah, he probably deserves to be dismissed, but for what reason would you be dismissing him? And in most cases, people are dismissing him because of their envy of him or they're jealous of him. And so when it comes to like what we're all doing, I think we're able to do this right now in this time, because the ones that would ultimately stop us from talking are trying to figure out how they can capitalize on it. How can we get in here and make money with this? Because this isn't going away. This is going to keep growing. And so they're all these different versions of authority are trying to figure out how they're going to get ahead of it,
Right.
And they don't know how to get ahead of it until they know what it is we're talking about. And so we've got to, they're going to allow us to do this for a time. And then what's going to happen, it's going to become so widespread that they won't have a choice but to orchestrate, an end time event or course of actions to lead to that. This liberates too many people from the bondage of sin.
And you're right. For a while there, it was all about the flat Earth, and they've essentially efficiently destroyed that, all blown it up to where anybody waking up to that will end up on the wrong channels, the CIA, whoever's, and just get lost in that and never get past there. And so it's happening already a little bit. The short season talking people, or little season, we're getting more groundswell, and we're starting to get more pushback. And so if they haven't already, they've infiltrated, or they will be, to break this up next. Because it is the next truth, I believe. Because that's the other thing. When people get upset with me when I talk about this, I'd say, why are we fighting so hard to be the people in the beginning of Revelation?
Right.
There's people at the end of the book, and no one ever wants to talk about that. As Jerry Seinfeld says, who are these people? There's got to be somebody left at the end of the book for Satan to go and deceive the world. And so why can't it be us? Like, why is that such a crazy thought? And when you add up all the things, like all the pictures of, well, I didn't get to them tonight, but let me grab this here. Let's see, one of these. All the pictures like this, which nobody builds this way. This was melted. This was fermented.
This is melted. That's melted.
And melted.
Yep.
And when you add that to the narratives and the lies of the history that we're finding out, and then you put it all together,
heat.
It paints a picture that says, well, we're past this, and now we're in the ending, the very ending. And we shouldn't even fight about it, because if you're in Revelation waiting for Jesus to return, the people in the little season are waiting for the same thing.
That's right. We're waiting for Jesus too. The
Right.
difference, I feel like, is that they're waiting. Whenever they see him, he's not going to be what they're expecting.
No.
They're expecting something that's fanciful, something that's full of imagination, full of lustful desire, is what they're expecting. And it just goes along with the whole thing. I mean, they're not going to know what, they're not going to like him because of the way he looks. They're not going to like it because of the way he sounds. They're not going to like the way he arrives. They're going to critique and judge every part about it, but none of that'll matter at that point. Not to people like us, not in a little season. And that's the beauty of it. Like you're saying, we're way past all those tragic events. We're in the most blessed time in human history. There could never be a better time to live than right now, regardless that we're not flying around in drone cars. We can't just hover to work. But regardless of our level of technology, we don't have to deal with all those plagues. We don't have to deal with all those droughts, all those famines. We don't have to worry about the giants trying to eat us. We don't have to worry about some giant tree falling down on us in the middle of the night because they decide to cut one down 2 miles over.
Right.
We don't have to worry about all the tragedies, the judgments, and all that all these people have to deal with.
And I
It
feel
doesn't mean we. Oh, I'm sorry. I was just going to say, it doesn't mean that we're not going to be judged. And I saw this earlier. A Baptist preacher was online. I think he only had like 300 whatever people had seen his video, but I think that's what it was, like 300 views. I was like, okay, but he wasn't necessarily trying to debunk the little season. He was just trying to explain where we're coming from, and he's actually says there's merit in this. This is going to be a fourth option. Of course, I'm compelled to respond to this. We don't care about that in the little season. We're not an option. This is the only way, but this isn't an option. This isn't a doctrine. That's not what this is. And a lot of people are confused about that, thinking it's a doctrine. It's hard to say exactly the way I feel about it without hurting someone's feelings, but at the end of the day, it's not a doctrine, and I don't care if you believe that or not. I'm not going along with beliefs.
I'm concerned about one of the deceptions is I know a lot of people that are waiting for the rapture of the church. And whatever that is, if it happened, it already would have happened. And so in my mind, if you're waiting for that and it already occurred, then you could have part of the falling away be that, you were in tribulation. But that's not biblical to want to be raptured away when other people are going to be suffering. Like we're going to be excited that Jesus took us, but our whole family and friends and stuff are going through it. We don't care. No, it's the opposite. He says that you're going to go through these things, just like, and John says it too. He's the partner in tribulation. We're supposed to experience these things if we're a follower of Christ. God has our back and will protect us, but doesn't mean we're going to be gone through it. We shouldn't, as believers in Christ, we shouldn't be excited to leave and watch everyone go through this.
That's right.
I feel, why would God have woken, say, my eyes awake to these things, and then take me out? I'm supposed to be here like you to speak this truth and have people hear it and repent. When Jonah went and he finally went to the city,
say that.
Right? he went through it and they actually repented and God didn't destroy them. And of course he got upset, right? Because he was made looking like a fool, but he didn't get the whole concept of what he did. And so it's the same thing. Let's say we're wrong. Let's say we are heading towards rapture and the beginning of Revelation. Well, then, you know what? Pie in my face. I didn't realize it and I'll look stupid. But if we're right, and the people that are waiting for it, they're going to really get sunk if it doesn't happen for them the way that they expect, the way the church told them.
Yeah.
Whereas instead of waiting for destruction, we shouldn't be excited that the world's going to be destroyed. We should be excited that we're that much closer to seeing God and being in his presence, and you know, all this will be gone. And so that's why I feel that it's really a deception that's, you know, potentially very damaging if you're waiting for that rapture, especially if it doesn't happen the way you think. So
this gives me peace in the things that I don't know. You know, I guess it's realizing that all the things outside of scripture that I've been taught are false. And now I can read this thing and go, okay, I do know the parts that are true now. The things I'm not sure about, there's a reason I'm not sure about it. Maybe I don't need to know that. You know, I don't need to know. It's like I don't need to know what happened before the flood, other than I don't need to behave like they did. And what was that? They did everything the opposite of what God told them to do. So if I don't want that bad situation to happen, well, let's just not do what they did. It's the whole concept of what would you do with the system? How would you fix it? Well, I'd rip it off like a band-aid. You know, and then you get the pushback immediately. Well, a lot of people gonna die and suffer. Yeah. You know, but there's only one, a generation at some point in time is going to have to lose everything for the next generation to come out ahead and within righteous reason. It's never going to happen until that happens. And God has done that throughout time, and our time is coming, but it's not going to be that bad. Not like it was in Revelation. When you read about all that, it won't be that bad.
Well, what I look at it is this: if we are in the little season, where's my guy? If we are in the little season,
pizza.
That means this is Satan's version of Revelation. I mean, it's obviously there's things in the book that are playing out. We see them happening in life.
Yes.
So we're going to get his. It's like when I made the comment, you know, the original RoboCop I liked, and the new one was, you know, nowhere near as good. And anytime they redo something, it's usually never as good as the original. And so we're going to see Satan's version of this, whatever he's throwing at us. It follows all the Illuminati cards too, obviously. You know, we're waiting for the alien deception too. And so it's like we are going to experience something. But if we have our faith in God, if we know Jesus, we know that God's here. He didn't check out. He's allowing all this to happen. Why? Because people are not waking up. And the only way to do it is to shake them awake. They say there's no atheists in foxholes. I say there's no atheists. I think it's just children in rebellion at some point, because we all come from the same creator. We're all living in the same living space. And some of us have opened our eyes to it. God's allowed it. And some of us haven't. And so what we're going to experience, I think that's why we're here, you and I and people like us, to help those people when they start seeing really bad times, whatever it is, to help them on to understand what they're going through. That's my idea. But hey, we're already 8:30, and I didn't do space news. You want to hit that real quick?
Oh yeah.
Some people get mad.
I got to figure out what's coming for us.
Yeah. All right, here we go.
This week in scary space news.
So I thought it was interesting. There's been a lot of pictures and videos where Venus was, you could see through the moon. So that's another thing. But isn't it interesting that they mentioned this? It's now transitioned from the evening star to the morning star. Well, we know who the morning star is. So that was interesting. They're throwing
I had seen something not long ago. They were saying something about our grandkids will see a totally different night sky or something like that. Like all the stars, like the celestial season is going to change or something.
Yeah. We've been seeing the same sky since the beginning of time. It seems like.
Yeah, it's not going to change. It's not going to change. The star, that center star, Sirius, has been in the same spot forever.
Right. Right.
You know,
it's guiding shift the same way. So here's what they say that is in our solar system. I mean, come on. We're supposed to believe what's going on. Meanwhile, God says there's water above and water below. So he doesn't talk about all this.
And the only people that are smart enough to tell you how they figured that out, when you ask them, they'll say, we don't know.
Yeah. It's all theory. It's all
Yeah,
theory.
it's all theory. We don't really know, but we speculate.
And there's no sound in space, but every week now there's a new sound coming out of a planet or a star. This is Neptune. Apparently, this is what Neptune sounds like. They
I
all
look at
sound
it like it's like video views, content views. They'll post stuff like this, and they'll look at that and they go, 8.6 billion people in the world. We can reach 1.3 million with this.
yeah, and they all have the same sound. I can play them, and they're all the same noise. So there's that. And I thought this was interesting. Again, I've discussed this. Nobody's reading the JFK files. They dropped like thousands of pages. I don't even know. And everyone wants Grok to read it for them. But within these pages, I thought this was really interesting. In 1963, JFK sought to ease the uneasy tension by extending cooperation with the USSR in outer space, investigating UFOs through a joint moon project. He was opposed to this. They felt the militarization of the moon would place the U.S. in a dangerous situation with the EBEs, who control the dark side of the moon.
It's like someone's writing a movie, writing a book, a sci-fi book.
They love combining all of their psyops. It's fantastic.
When I see stuff like this, part of my brain says, what if what you're actually reading and looking at is a real document, but from a completely different time period, and then they had to create this event so that it could match up with this document. That's why some of it will be kind of out there, like the UFO stuff is. And what I'm referring to, going back to like you were saying earlier about Jasher, they're doing the same thing in this little season that after every catastrophe they would go out and collect as much of the data and technologies and everything you could gather, hoard it, and slowly release it. They see, 1963 JFK. Well, we're not going to do the UFO thing in this script, but here's your script, and your name is John F. Kennedy, or you're going to go call you JFK or whatever. It's all it's whether I'm right about that happening at another time period or not. It's all acting. It's all just fictional movie stuff, and that's how I see it now. I just look at it like, oh man, that's just silly. It's all silly now.
And then I covered this, was it a week or two ago, where there was a hole in the ISS that they fixed it with, I don't know what they used, but the internet had already changed the dates. So I was excited that this guy had the original ones that I saw. And so supposedly Chris Hadfield in 2018 showed this photo of a hole that appeared from something hitting the space station or something. But it matches this album by Commodity 4 years earlier. So the album came out first, and then he posted this as like that was supposedly what happened. So it's there if you look for it. But now I found an article that changed the date of this album, and it made it look like this came first. But no, it definitely didn't. So I thought that was cool that I found that. And then they wanted everyone to stare at the sky at this magic spiral. I don't know what it is, but again, it's just like the pyramids and the Ark of the Covenant, the Shroud of Turin. Everyone was posting it from different countries, and they blamed it on what? SpaceX again,
Right. Oh, Elon, he's out there up to his schemes again.
Right? Okay, what's next? And then, of course, they show this. This is high video footage, or what do you call it? Whatever, good footage of Mars. And of course, this thing is controlled remote controlly and controlled. It never has any issues. I can't get cell service walking from one room to another, but they can control this thing on Mars, and it never, needs any kind of maintenance with all the dust and stuff. Meanwhile, you can compare it, as many people have done in the past. It looks just like Devon Island, and you can find NASA trains here. So you see a Mars rover here too, and they say, oh, it's for training purposes. So again, truth in plain sight. and people don't believe. They'd rather believe that there's a machine out there in Mars.
You could show that to any believer, and they'll tell you that you're the one that's creating the delusion, but then they'll go to the same website and they'll say, but this is real, right? Even after having you shown it to them, they just can't let it go.
No.
I don't know why people love that so much, and
Well,
why the Bible's version of reality is so bad. But
when we were kids, I mean, I grew up loving Star Wars and Star Trek and space travel, all that. So they've indoctrinated us from an early age to this day. They throw all the stuff at you as a child. Dinosaurs, ball flying through space, space is real. They throw it all at once. So by the time you get at any age, you start to question it. People laugh at you and call you crazy because how could you possibly think that? Yeah, indoctrination is real. Meanwhile, you got the CIA document. See how they always like to tie their psyops together? They say life did exist on Mars, and it was a population of very large people, giants, and they built
pyramids. They got them up there too,
Yeah,
giant pyramid building giants.
They throw it all together in one big happy package, and then there's the moment when China forgot to put in the curvature of their spacewalks.
Whoops, we used the wrong camera lens.
Yeah, so there's that. Yeah, here's another view.
He's like, all right, change feed, change camera.
So, and you can find all these mistakes, of course, ad nauseum now all over. I mean, I think I've even played this one before where the guy plays soccer and he puts his head right through the space station ceiling, so there's that. And you can show people this and they'll just say, oh, it's a glitch because of where they are in space. Or I don't know how you get past this stuff. But yeah, there he is.
Yeah, they'll say it has something to do with the FPS.
Yeah, the video
frames.
Yeah, exactly. So, all right, I think that's all of it. And then, so the people that are waiting for the beginning of Revelation, they're waiting for them to build a third temple, which is not biblically written. They're waiting for them to sacrifice a red heifer, which is not in the. I mean, it happened one time, but it's not written that they're doing it again. Plus, the place they're supposed to have this temple, there's a mosque there. So they're either going to build it in another place, which then nullifies the whole thing. And then they have to start sacrificing again because they haven't done it for thousands of years. And then they have to stop sacrificing.
Yeah, they're gonna sacrifice a red heifer so that they don't have to sacrifice, though we haven't sacrificed in over 2,000 years.
Right.
Yeah, makes a lot of sense. You gotta. I've thought about this. I really do now. I'm almost convinced that when you explain that to even some of the most hardcore believers and all that, they know you're telling the truth, but they immediately they want to shut you down because they know that if you're telling the truth, then they are going to have to answer for a lot of wrong. And so they need you to be wrong. They need the flat earth to be wrong, just like they need the little season to be wrong. Because if we're telling the truth, we all end up gaining and winning and benefiting from this if we all turn to it. But no other way do we all win and gain. There's no other way to go where we can all have the same glorious end where we're hanging out with Jesus for the rest of our lives and all eternity and exploring. Like when he says we can't measure the world, I think about the limitations of where man has been throughout history and time. And then I think about this new world that he's going to create. What if it truly is endless in this new world and you have an eternity to explore an endless eternal world? I mean, it's something that you can't, it's hard to fathom and imagine. But to me, any life within that realm would be, a blessing. I don't know why people wouldn't want that, but it's not. And I don't think it's that they don't, but they don't know how to get it without serving themselves. And that's just because of all the indoctrination theories, all the Baptist, Methodist, Catholic, Mormon, all of that, every one of them, it's all self-serving, every bit of it. And then you'll throw in the super self-servings like the prosperity gospels, your Joel Osteen characters, and then of course there's they're too much, and so that's why people can, kind of agree to disagree to a certain level on certain doctrines and ways. But ultimately this here, it removes you completely. You're no longer the focus of anything. You're it's a benefit and a blessing that you're even here. You're welcome, kind of thing. But at the end of the day, we're not. It's hard for, I say, and I'm saying we, because I was a victim of all this at one point. I mean, I was a arrogant SOB at one time. I thought I was God's gift to the world. At one point, I thought I knew everything, and then I realized I knew nothing. and, uh, and I'm like, God bless, I'm getting humbled left and right. And I'm like, man, when is this going to end? And then finally, I think God, finally said, all right, I'm going to let you make it. I'm going to let you get back up now that I've knocked you all the way down. But when he brought me back up, it wasn't what I was originally thinking it was going to be, because I came back up with a whole different crowd, everyone else that I thought I was going to be coming up with, when just the same as anything at any point in time in life, they ended up in their own little world going in a totally different way. But it's odd because they're the majority. We're a very small group.
One of my favorite handlers was the Beatles, and there was a song John Lennon sang where he said, "Life is what happens to you while you're busy making other plans." And I feel that you can insert God in there instead and say, God's what happened to you while you're busy making other plans. Because if you say you're going to do this, you'll end up doing that every time, it seems like. And that's a wonderful thing. If we listen for his voice and you look for him, he'll direct your steps. And,
that's right.
Well, hey, we got 2.5 hours into this.
Yeah, that's cool. That's good.
I really appreciate you coming on. I like your perspectives. I encourage people to look at your Bible studies. Now, when is your Bible studies? What time or days?
Yeah, so I'm on Central Time. So I go 8 p.m. to 10. Usually I try to get about 2 hours in. If the chat is busy, because Tuesdays and Thursday nights, I go from 8 p.m. I start at 8 p.m. And like you, I'm going to try to do 2 hours, but, I may not do quite 2 hours every time. But generally, I'm going to do about 2 hours. And so it's Tuesdays and Thursday nights, Truth Unfiltered YT, no spaces. If you're trying to find it, that's what I think a lot of people will have a hard time finding, is they space it out. Or if you space it out or spell it any other way than what I spelled it on the screen, it'll be hard to find. So it's not just that I'm shadow banned like a lot of us in this community. It's that they're being specific. If you want to find him, you got to be wanting to actually find him. And that's so to find me, it's Truth Unfiltered YT, no spaces, Tuesday, 8 to 10. Tuesdays and Thursdays, 8 to 10.
Put it in the chat to make it easier too. And it's also in the description of the show. So,
right.
Well, again, thank you. What a blessing to find another brother in Christ that at least sees the world and even the book the way I do. It's wonderful that the Holy Spirit's putting us together. And so I want to thank you again. I want to thank the chat and all the people that have maybe new to me. Hope you enjoyed yourself. Please remember to like, share, and subscribe to help the channel. And I always like to close out with a prayer. And so I'd just like to say, dear Father in heaven, please continue to watch over us. Guide us through these times. They're amazing times, and they're sometimes full of trepidation, fear, and you remind us not to be fearful because you're on our side. And we thank you for that blessing. We thank you for the blessing that you've opened our eyes to the times that we're in, and that we can be a voice here to help others navigate these times and tribulations that we're heading towards. And we thank you for that blessing, and continue to guide us with peace, with joy in our hearts, and give us the patience as we can wait for others as you've been patient for us. And we thank you for that blessing too. and continue to protect us. Continue to keep all evil away from us, all darkness, all dark spirits, Satan himself, bind and cast away, and help us and heal us through these times. And as we can help others to bring ourselves and them closer to the truth, the way, and the life through Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen.
Okay. All right. Well, again, thank you very much. And the only things I have left is I dismissed the class, he says with a knife in his leg.
Class is dismissed.
All right. And then I play my outro song. So again, thank you very much, Rev, for being here. And I look forward to talking with you again.
Absolutely. It was a lot of fun. Thank you for having me.
My pleasure. All right. Good night, everyone. God bless you and have a wonderful week.
I'm the satellite.
500 years ago, everybody knew the Earth was flat.
Satellite transfer complete.